The views expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship. Now here are your co-hosts, Marv R., Bruce H., and the Monty Man.
Yeah! All right, welcome to another fine episode of The Great Reality here at Take12Radio.com on your internet dial. Marv is here, Bruce is here, I am here, and we hope that that you are there. Without you, we're just talking to ourselves. We do that a lot anyway. Welcome to the show. Our email address is take12radio@comcast.net. And let me just say, before we get into anything, I just want to express my gratitude for our board of directors. We have approximately 18 board members. Some of them are brand new. And I just want to express my gratitude. We had our board meeting yesterday at 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. It only took an hour and 5 minutes. That's really good for a board meeting. And I think we got a lot accomplished. We got some great things coming down the pike for Take 12 Radio. But I want to thank each and every one of the board members, particularly the new board members that have joined us. So thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for participating in this venture. All right. We're going to be talking about promises that are in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Promises that are in the steps. Now, sometimes we miss these, and I went through. I was going through step one last week, making some notes, and then I remembered one of my favorite websites. It's called friendsofbillw.net, and I thought, this guy is pretty doggone thorough. I think I'm going to check him out, and he pulled out stuff that I didn't even think about. We're going to be talking about these. These are not numbered necessarily in the order of priority. They're just numbered because they're numbered. But we're going to be talking about those. You may agree, you may disagree. We may not all agree here in the studio. That's fine. It's good when we sit down together and we chat because we work things out that way and we're able to learn from each other. So we're going to be talking about the promises. Now, please do not get this confused with what is commonly known as the promises that may be on the wall in your 12-step meeting. If you have a framed piece of literature that says the promises, more than likely, unless you have several of them, more than likely it's the 9th step promises that they're referring to. We're going to talk about those later on down the road, but we're going to go from the first step because every step has promises. Every step has prayer directives. Surprise, surprise. There are instructions in every step. The 12 and 12 is not the book of instructions. It's an editorial. And by the way, I'm very fond of it, but it is not the suggested program of recovery laid out that's in the big book on how to do this thing. So we're going to be taking the promises out of the big book. And again, I want to credit friendsofbillw.net for supplying these. Before we get into that, though, and by the way, we're not doing trivia, we're not doing recovery news and focus, because I wanted to make some time to discuss with my co-host and let you guys kind of be a fly on the wall here about something that I've observed. It has nothing to do with what our topic is today, but I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes on this. I think that most people would agree that the more things change, the more they remain the same so often. But I'm beginning to wonder if that's kind of falling apart because I'm watching things change in our society today, and they're not being reeled back into the things that used to be. And let me give you an example. I was in the store this morning getting some creamer, just one item, one grocery item, that's it. And I got to the checkout line, and I met at the same time with a lady who had a basket that was like overflowing with stuff, right? And because she was a young lady, I said, "Oh, go ahead." Because I was kind of there a little bit before her, but it was just kind of the way I was raised. She was a woman, and I said, "Go ahead." And she looked at me with the meanest face, and she said, "You betcha." And she literally cut me off and went ahead. Now, I had one item. This is just one example. And my son always says, "Yeah, but Dad, that's when you grew up." I mean, we talk about this kind of thing all the time. But let me say it. When I was growing up, you did let a woman go first, regardless of what it was, whether it was a traffic stop, no matter what it was. And however, if somebody had only one item in the grocery store, right?
Right.
It was common to say, "No, you go ahead." Because they knew that you were going to take just a couple of seconds, and they had all this stuff. Now, I wasn't irritated. I really wasn't. Because I wasn't in a hurry or anything like that. But I got to thinking, what if I was in a hurry? I wonder how selfish I would have been, and my pride would have kind of reared its ugly head. But that's just one example of some of the stuff that is changing today. And my wife and I had a chat about this last week, about the stuff that's changing today. And instead of getting angry at people not having certain core values in today's society, we kind of came to the conclusion that most of them don't even know that there are proper ways of doing things, that there are polite ways, there's forms of integrity that should be met when communicating with other people in public, things like that. Mm-hmm. From opening the door for your wife. How many people open the door for their wife anymore? Or how many people ever even knew to do that at all? Is it a generational thing? You guys know what I'm talking about? There's just a lot of stuff where you got to shake your head, and you go, what happened?
Well, Monty?
Yeah.
This may not be proper, but in your grocery store situation,
right?
Are you sure that lady didn't misunderstand and think you called her a goat head?
Instead of go ahead?
Yeah.
Maybe she did. But that's just one example. I'll give you another one real quick, and I'll let you guys respond. School. There is a teacher that I happen to like very much, although he's not much of a leader, but he's very good at teaching the skill that he teaches. The kids walk all over this guy. Just walk all over him. He's quite a bit younger than we are. And it's almost like he didn't care. And I watch what's happening, and I think to myself, these kids would never have gotten away with that when I was in school.
I never did.
You never got away with it?
No.
Yeah. What is going on? What is, from that to the acceptance of things that are totally immoral today, as if they're just the natural, it's okay. Is everything okay today? And is there no boundaries? Are there no guidelines to living? It is just blowing my mind, man.
Well, I think that it all boils down to one thing. It's kind of like you hear it all the time, and people won't think much about it. But I think family values are going down the tubes, and I think the family is going down the tubes. There's no unity there, and the kids and the young adults are just like weeds out there growing and doing their own thing. I do believe the situation with the grocery store is more than you really think it is. I think that you didn't like her response, her attitude. Here you say go ahead, and then because
I was personally willing to let her go ahead. It really, I didn't care.
Just my opinion.
Yeah.
I think you was willing to let her go ahead,
Yeah.
but you didn't like her attitude.
No, I didn't like her attitude.
See, and I think that's what bothered you, and it,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think that people do have their attitudes do go, and we to look at them and kind of like bypass that is really hard. Me and Marv talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
And
Because
it's really
you're right. Because I was thinking to myself, why didn't she just say, "Well, thank you, sir"? Because
Yeah.
again, quote unquote, that's the way I was raised.
yeah.
Weren't most of us? At least from my age group up. I'm 59.
Well,
Bruce is a little older. Mark's a little older than me.
Here's another example of what you're talking about that I give you. My sisters taught me to open the door. Mm-hmm. Don't go out on a date and not get out of the car and open the door for your date. These are
Right.
the sort of things that they installed in me, and so I thought they were the proper things to do. Whether I did them or not is another thing. But I mean, that I was taught to do these things, and I think that women would appreciate that, to walk on the street side when you're walking down
Yeah,
the street.
there's another
with
one.
them. That
Right.
sort of thing they taught me. Never say why you're up, or it's just woman's work.
Yeah.
And you'll probably get along. So these are some of the things that, where I was taught
Yeah.
to respect.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You clean back at the grocery store. You do something, but, why can't the rest of the world be respectful? Well, it's not that way anymore.
It isn't, is it?
Yeah. You betcha,
Not that
she
it couldn't
says.
be.
Not that it couldn't be?
Yeah. What I was thinking about is passivity. I think they call it passivity.
Passivity? Yeah.
Being passive. I recently read a book. It's called Wild at Heart. The guy's talking about in this case, the males having a warrior's heart and how God designed that. Yeah, I was thinking of your teacher, and God designed that into the man for a purpose, and that's been lost.
Yeah.
People are way too passive. And the other part of the story, and this is just me, is watch television sometime and look at the commercials.
Oh, yeah.
You have a right to this. You deserve this.
It's your money. Use it when you need it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm not sure, but it looks to me like society, they're all saying, well,
Entitlements?
entitlements.
You bet.
And
Yeah. Go ahead.
boy,
Mark.
and you're right. You can see it. Just I'm not a type of person that hangs out in a mall or anything like that, but I've been there, and you look around, people are angry, and they do glare at you. And if you do anything that kind of perceives that you've stepped on their rights, boy, look out.
Yeah. 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 Here's one. Pulling up to the house to pick up your boyfriend or your girlfriend and honking instead of getting out of the car and going to the door.
Yeah.
What's up with that? Are you kidding me?
Everybody does that today. Join the 20th century. I think that there's no code of conduct. There's nothing to live up to. You just do what you think is okay. And we know what happens there because of the human heart,
Yeah.
because of who we are.
Yeah.
And we'll do with what we can get away with.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like history.
It's mankind, brother, and I'm sorry to say that.
It's like the true historical facts of the foundation of this country are not being taught in most of your public schools today, and kids are thinking that we're founded on the values that TV is putting out. They don't know. They just don't know, and so they are believing anything they're told.
Just talk about one nation under God. Well, I'm not too sure that's true anymore.
Right.
If you think you're a person of great influence, try ordering your neighbor's dog around.
Right.
You know, and that's kind of what we're seeing.
Yeah.
In a way, is instead of it's 180 degrees out of biblical truth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were talking about that before the show started.
Yeah.
You know, the humbling up and being grateful and love your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
And it's completely opposite.
See, we
the
live
great truth.
Yeah, we live that way, all of us.
Yeah.
The way we're talking about.
Sure.
And today, all we're trying to do is live out of a biblical truth, to live by biblical principles instead of our selfish and self-centered desires. You see, and that's not that's not an easy thing to do when we want to please ourselves.
And I would venture to say, and this for the listeners that may not be of the same flavor we are as far as our faith goes. From what I gather, the majority of spiritual writings or sacred writings that are out there, whether they're New Age, whether they're Eastern philosophy, you know, whether they're Christianity, the majority of them do teach that, you know, you put others before yourself, that you respect other people, that you love rather than hate, and that kind of thing. We may not agree on some very vital issues in some of those teachings, but most of those do have that at their core. So I'm thinking, do some people have absolutely no kind of spiritual walk? And I'm thinking the answer to that is that's true.
That's right.
And also a hardening of the conscience.
Yeah.
You every once in a while, here a while back, I seen a documentary on OPB, and it was about, and I suppose people get tired of hearing this, but the video games and these kids playing these ultra-violent games and stuff, and it actually toughens up their consciousness.
You bet.
To where they don't even think about things like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
what goes in the brain. You know, garbage in, garbage out's a real old adage, but it is true. It is true. Well, anyway, I just wanted to. I was just thinking, is it just me? Because some of my friends say it is.
No.
Oh, you're
don't
just
think
you're
it
just
is.
you're just overthinking it.
We could step into some really heavy areas in this concept. Look at the way the country is run, and look at the things that are being done. Look at the same-sex marriages that are happening today. Do you agree with those? You see? Mm-hmm. And is that just the attitude about people today? Is it a good thing?
Right.
Okay. So it's huge.
You know, regardless of where you stand on certain major issues, I challenge people to don't just jump into yes. You know, just don't jump on the bandwagon. Research it, study it, see what does this really match up with what you know in your heart to be proper, to be true, to be right, to be wise. You know, you've heard me say it before. In light of my past experience, my current circumstances, and my future hopes and dreams, what's the wise thing to do? Not what's right, not what's fair, not what's legal, what's wise. And I think if we'll ask that question before we act, I think things could turn out a little different. But I think we're really quick to jump and say, oh, yeah, that's cool, let's do that. Yeah. You know,
programmed to jump that way.
Right. Equal rights for squirrels, chipmunks, and everything in between. I mean, come on. Anyway, all right, we're gonna.
Now I gotta say that's funny.
Let's hear from our sponsor. We'll come back with the beginning, part one of the Big Book Promises when we return.
Foundations Recovery Network invites you to attend Innovations in Recovery, March 30th through April 2nd, 2015, at the prestigious Hotel del Coronado in San Diego, California. Innovations in Recovery is about the discovery and discussion of effective solutions for professionals and their patients. Professionals will learn best practices for treating co-occurring addiction and mental health disorders, process addictions, unconventional and unwilling populations, and how to facilitate a framework for the long-term recovery of their patients. To register for the Innovations in Recovery Conference, visit www.foundationsevents.com.
Serenity Springs Recovery Center, located on the beautiful east coast of Florida. A unique facility that is committed to providing exceptional individual care in small group settings while utilizing their experienced and dedicated clinical and support staff of licensed therapists and doctors. Visit their website, serenityspringsrecovery.com, or call 386-423-4540. Serenity Springs, making a life-changing investment into your recovery. Alrighty, welcome back. Reading from friendsofbillw.net, the introduction of this, it says, many of us have heard of the 9th step promises from page 83 and 84 of the Big Book, 3rd edition, of Alcoholics Anonymous. There are, however, additional promises in the Big Book. The following is a list of approximately 150 promises that I compiled. This is BillW.net, by the way, not the Monty Man. From the first edition of the Big Book. Some of the promises are directly associated with completion of a step. Some of the promises are inferred from the experiences of the first 100 men and women who recovered from alcoholism. In either case, I have found it helpful to remember there are promises throughout the Big Book if we just look for them. And So on page 3 of this, and by the way, again, listeners, if you like a copy of this, you can download this at www.friendsofbillw.net. These are some of the promises. We may not get through all these today, but these are some of the promises associated with step 1. Listed here, like I said, not necessarily in order of importance or chronological order. But on page 17, it says, nearly all have recovered. It's referring to the first 100 men and women. They have solved the drink problem. There's 2 promises there. They've recovered, and the drink problem has been solved. I never looked at those as promises before. You know, I read through this stuff over and over again, and I never even considered it. Number 2, let's just do 3 of these. Number 2, but there exists among us a fellowship, a friendliness and an understanding which is increasingly wonderful. Number 3, the feeling of having shared in a common peril is one element in the powerful cement that binds us. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. And then it goes on to say, we have a way out on which we can absolutely agree, and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism. That's on page 17. So there's like 3 promises in that one. The feeling of having shared in a common peril. We have discovered a common solution. And we have a way out. So let's look at those 3. Bruce, you had kind of mentioned something before the show about what you thought was the first promise.
Yeah, that's on page 15.
Okay. And
on page 15, it tells you this. It says, I'll read the whole thing, and then I'll pick the part out that I think is important. It says, for if the alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he did not work, he would surely drink again. I think one of the very first promises in the book in step 1 is that if you don't do this thing, you will drink. And I think that what you've read there kind of verifies that down on the bottom of page 17, it talks about we have but 2 alternatives. One's going to the bitter end. The other is to accept his spiritual help. And then this other part about the Creator on page 25 that we're going to get into. You know, but there's 3 places just before that where it talks about the problem. then you have this new relationship, this spiritual.
So a promise can be one that is not necessarily a pleasant outcome.
You bet.
It is because we kind of think of promises as unicorns and rainbows, right?
Yeah. Let's tie it together. We're talking about step one.
Right.
And what is step one? You're powerless. And my take on that is this. You're powerless when you're drunk, and you're powerless when you're sober.
Right.
You see.
If you're an alcoholic.
So if you're powerless, what's the end result of that? If you're powerless over alcohol, not if you're an alcoholic, but if you're powerless over alcohol,
right?
You're going to drink again.
Yeah, and that is a promise.
See, that's the point of that, and that's to take that out. And I'm not taking that out of context because on page 44, it agrees with me there, and it talks about the summary of step one.
Any thoughts, Marv?
Oh, I have thoughts, but
You're still thinking about controlling that neighbor's dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, that second sentence you read, they have solved the drink problem. Okay? But that's the drink problem, period. And I think number two, where it talks about existing among us a fellowship, a friendliness, and an understanding which is indescribably wonderful, is going to fix the rest of the problem. You see where I'm coming from? When I originally went into AA, I need to take that back. A few months after I went into AA, I decided I was an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I first went in there, there's no way I was going to admit that. And
did you even think you might be, or you just were dead sold against it?
I think I denied it.
Yeah.
Hard-headed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then even though I'm not a real social person,
mm-hmm.
the sentence in number two turned out to be important to me, because through the meetings, especially the understanding part, started helping me on the road to understanding I needed power greater than myself.
Got it. So that's one of the things that when I came, remember I told you guys, I think it was last week or our last show, that there was those two meetings that I attended. The one where the guy was real welcoming, and the other one where they told me to leave because I had a shirt with a fish on it.
Right.
And I gravitated. Where did I gravitate to? Where I was welcomed, obviously. And I had never been faced before by another human being that looked me straight in the eye and basically was saying, "I know you're sick. It's okay. You can stay here." That had never happened before. It was always a confrontational thing. It was always, "What's wrong with you? Why can't you get it together? What were you thinking? All that kind of stuff." I never had somebody say to me, "Yeah, I know." So that was a promise that came true for me. So let's go on. Number 4, there is a solution, page 25. I didn't know that. What a wonderful thing. Now, I didn't know what the solution was yet, but I heard that. I think one of the things where we cheat people is we say there's a solution and then we don't talk about it, right, Bruce?
Something that I want to bring up real quick about there is a solution. What I've discovered for myself, excuse me, a lot of times the big book and other literature talks about stuff like this, the promises and everything, and I don't know if it's just me or what, but it almost seems to me like they're saying right now.
Yeah, doesn't it?
This
Yeah.
is going to happen right now.
Yeah.
So, in the part about there is a solution, I would like to say for me that I think that there are parts of solution, but the solution is lifelong.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to come right now,
Right.
because I've been around for a little while and I'm still stuff comes up and I'm just kind of beating my head against
And it isn't
the wall.
completely solved
Right,
yet.
right.
Yeah,
right.
I think
So I think people need to know that this is,
It's a process. It's a Yeah,
progress, not perfection, is real. It's progressive, and it will come about, but it's not going to happen today
I agree
for a lot of people.
yeah.
I agree with what Marv's saying. As I think that it's a growth process,
Right.
And it's probably lifelong. As a matter of fact, I would even step out of that, saying it that way, and say it's going to be a lifelong process. We have to learn to grow and develop, and at one place in the book, it actually talks about perfect and enlarge this spiritual life. And it is a progression to kind of shift from that.
Do you think that one of the reasons it's lifelong is because we have a tendency to repeat the same silly stuff over and over again?
Yeah.
We're awful hard-headed.
Yeah.
Even when we're faced with the better road to go down, we go down the other one.
Even in our best moments, we're the author of confusion. That's what it says.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
really are.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
I just think that people who end up in AA, and many that don't, are a lot more broken than what we realize. The idea that something's going to be fixed right now with human beings is way off
Kind of
base.
silly, really, to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of unreasonable.
Yeah.
Because you can almost be guaranteed that no matter who it is that walks through that door, there's probably trauma that's been going on,
Abuse.
neglect, definitely self-will run riot. There's other. It's just not that there's a drink problem.
Right.
Number
But before anything can be done, the drink problem has to be solved.
yeah, because you got to get your head clear.
yeah.
Number 5 says, but we saw that it really worked in others. And we had come to believe in the hopelessness and the futility of life as we had been living it. Number 6, we had found much of heaven, and we had been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed.
I can't relate to that one.
The fourth dimension?
Yeah. I don't.
What do you think the fourth dimension is?
Bruce?
I know, I was just going to say Bruce.
Well, I believe it's growing in this God consciousness and learning to walk and on a spiritual plane.
I think you're right.
That's the lifelong process that we're in, and we're just trying to grow in that. And look, one of the things that we talked about before was learning to look for God's will and the power to carry that out, not our own.
Right.
And darn well when I pray, even I'm praying for God to join me in my little plans,
Sure.
to come help me,
We even say it sometimes in
Yeah.
faith circles. Lord, we invite you. And I always chuckle under my breath. I mean, I understand the heart behind it, but I always
You bet.
I snicker a little bit.
Yeah.
Like he needs an invitation.
It is obviously a matter of the heart, but I'm just saying that as I grew, as I'm I recognize these things, and that I'm actually, even in my prayers, I'm selfish. And I'm trying to direct God, and here I think I'm doing it right. But it's a growth process, like Marv is talking about. I'd beat myself up over him, but see, I'm easily able to talk about that. If somebody's saying, "Oh, you're even selfish in your prayers," and
Yeah.
and when you're praying, are you relying upon the prayer or who you're praying to? See, that make me mad. Well, today it doesn't.
I was this dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. It's really interesting, that statement, because I remember years ago sitting on a park bench with my drinking buddy of 20 some odd years, and I was looking down at these ants crawling along this crack, and I looked at him and I said, you know what? I wonder if I'll ever get back to where something as simple as that means as much to me as it did when I was a kid. And then we both agreed that we needed to quit drinking. And then we had another beer and toasted to it.
That's a wonderful story.
And there came a point shortly after that I stopped dreaming that I would return to that simplicity. I just gave up. I didn't have that in my sights anymore. The life of active alcoholism was so intense that even the thought of being in a different dimension of existence than I was then had gone. It had left me. But it came back. But it didn't come back just because I walked into a room with 25 people and sat down and listened to everybody talk about their day. That's not what happened. Somebody came alongside of me and walked this step process with me, and the light began to come on again, So I guess what I'm saying is, if you're out there and you're listening to this show and you don't think there's any hope and you just say, I've gone too far, don't believe that lie. Because, first of all, if you're listening to the show and that's where you're at, there's a reason why you're listening. And this possibly could be a process of you returning to some form of sanity. Remember, we talked about being returned to sanity, not sobriety. Mm-hmm. Sobriety's got to come first, though. We got to get this stuff out of our bodies before we can start thinking clearly.
Sometimes we don't want to tell people the truth, and what we're talking about here is step one. And notice how a lot of the promises are. And especially the one I talked about was, you're going to drink again. If we don't tell them the truth and the nature of this illness and the nature of the spiritual disease, well, then what are we doing to help them? On page 24, it talks about the problem in a couple places really profound, okay? Mm-hmm. That you will drink again, and that there is a complete failure and defense, from one putting his hand on a hot stove. And then it goes on to say, when this sort of thinking is fully established, we have placed ourselves beyond human aid.
Right.
These sort of things. And yet, when a guy comes into Alcoholics Anonymous, he's mad at God, right? He don't want to hear about anything other than fellowship.
Right. You bet.
But then it goes on to talk about, this solution and what it has. And if you have that, both elements, the problem and the solution, see, so you know the problem and you have a solution to apply it to, it becomes a wonderment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just boggles your mind to how this has taken place. Monty, the thing that I've recovered from, and I honestly and truthfully believe, I haven't wanted to drink or use for years. Now, that's a miracle. I mean, I used to wake up.
But you thought about it.
Yes, I have thought about it. Oh, you bet. But, I mean, I haven't had the obsession.
You haven't had the obsession.
It quick as that thought goes into my mind, it goes out. And so I haven't wanted to, and I've lived with an alcoholic for quite a while. And I'm telling you, to put me in a position like that when I didn't have Christ in my life it'd have been a death sentence for me. It would. It really, really would have, because I don't think I could have been able to battle that fact that somebody else is drinking and I'm not going to drink. You see what I mean?
Do you guys?
It used to make me mad.
Yeah. I know it did. Do you think? Let me ask Marv first. Do you think that sometimes we focus a lot on the malady and not the solution? And let me give you an example. Hi, I'm Monty, I'm an alcoholic. Instead of, hi, I'm Monty, I'm a recovered alcoholic. And I know different parts of the country, there's different patterns. And, I don't want to argue semantics. But the big book would suggest, in fact, there's some place in there where it actually says we're to refer to ourselves as recovered. But it's almost like I've got to shout from the mountaintops that I'm sick, sick, sick. And although I know that's important, and I know that we need to realize you can't fix what you don't acknowledge, obviously. But I think sometimes we forget that we have a common solution as well, not just a common malady. What do you think, Marv?
Well, I was thinking back while you were asking me this question when I first came into AA.
Uh-huh.
And first of all, I didn't want to believe I was alcoholic. I thought I was different, better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an individual. I think for myself. I'm not going to fall into this trap with this group, okay?
You're not a bandwagon guy.
Right.
Yeah.
And so people come in there, and I honestly don't know why I kept going back, except in my mind I was thinking to myself, there's something here, and I need it. And that was it.
Mm.
I didn't think about there is a solution or spiritual. Actually, I did think about spiritual stuff, but I don't think a lot of people, when they come in there, first of all, a lot of them don't want to be there.
Sure.
And I think they have they come in there and sit down and they think to themselves, if they're anything like I was, you know what? I'm worthless. What am I doing? I don't believe any of this stuff. Mm-hmm. These people are nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And it was by the grace of God that kept me going back. It really was. And then that idea, you know what? I got to change my way of thinking. I don't know. Anyway.
That is one thing I heard a lot when I first came in.
Oh, and I wanted to say one other thing. When we got down to sentence 4, 5, and 6, one of the things I thought of, maybe I'm way off base, but it really reminded me of chapter 11 in Hebrews, the faith chapter. Most of those old-timers, patriarchs and stuff, did not see the results of their faith.
Very true.
And
very true.
And that's what this process of being in recovery reminds me of. Somehow or another, somewhere along the line, each of us at a different point in time gets that mustard seed of faith, and it helps us to keep coming back.
Good point.
So
really good point. Good point. Bruce?
I definitely think that people are looking too much at the problem and not enough at the solution. I think the solution has been so watered down that people don't want to look at it, or they've talked or made it undesirable.
Interesting. My friend Dick B says, when did we go from keep it simple to keep them sick?
So I
miss those old timers. I wasn't in AA a couple of weeks, and this guy walks up to me and he's shaking his finger in my face, And he says, "You can't fool me any, Ramsey. I know you're an alcoholic." You talk about resentment. And he turned out to be a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
But, I agree with Bruce. It's a lot has been watered down.
Yeah.
Well, number 7 here, and this man, this packs a punch. This really is a powerful statement. It says, the great fact is just this. Just that introduction to what's coming up has got me paying attention. The great fact is just this, and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude towards life, toward our fellows, and toward God's universe. Wow, that's talking about change, isn't it? You're talking about changing your way of thinking.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I think, too, that the thing that makes me so dogmatic about things is I believe that this deep and effective spiritual experience was a result of taking this path. You know what I mean? The spiritual experience they're talking about is that the steps. Now, the steps aren't the spiritual experience. The steps are the path to the spiritual experience.
True. Yeah.
See, that's that. I have to make that clear. And then put it another way, the steps aren't the power. The steps are a path to the power.
Yeah.
This clears the path and humbles us and places us into a position to go to God with an entirely different attitude. These spiritual principles, a spiritual set of tools, if you will, whatever they call them, I think it all fits into that realm, that it's headed towards that. And so you take these spiritual principles and you apply them in your life, and it'll place you in a position that you can go to God with a contrite heart. And I think that's God working for us. Yes.
Observation.
The power of observation. And what I notice, it says spiritual experiences, plural.
Plural.
And that's why I say the power of observation. Sometime or another, I don't know exactly when, it dawned on me to really pay attention to what's going on around me. And another thing that dawned on me is to look for God's work in other people's lives. And don't ask me why, because I'm a thick-headed Irishman. And excuse me. Boy, it's right on the money. My whole attitude, 98%. And life has changed, and it's been because of spiritual experiences.
Right.
Not only that I have experienced, but in observation of what's going on with the people around me.
Yeah.
How God opens doors.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I do have to agree with you on that, to watch other people and to see them grow. Oh, that's just absolutely something you don't want to miss.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll do a couple more of these, and then we'll wrap it up for this week. Don't go away.
Origins Recovery Centers provides integrated inpatient treatment for substance abuse and co-occurring disorders. At Origins, clients receive expert medical, clinical, and spiritual care individually designed for their needs. Our clients leave Origins with the foundation upon which they will build the rest of their lives. Call now to speak with an admissions specialist. Our toll-free number is 888-843-8935. That's 888-843-8935. Origins, delivering real solutions for real families.
Hello there. This is the Monty Man from Take 12 Radio. You know, men, women, and their families experience tremendous pain and suffering due to the struggles they face from substance abuse and its co-occurring mental health challenges. They need to find a safe place for peace and healing. Well, Therapia Addiction Healing Center was born out of a deep desire to provide that safe and powerful healing environment. Therapia is a Greek word for healing. Traditionally, classic Greek medicine was holistic. It viewed the mind and body as one. At Therapia Addiction Healing Center, they have developed a holistic healing approach to treating addiction that is designed to bring into balance the mind, body, and the spirit. Therapia Addiction Healing Center, helping people recover from addictions by developing and maintaining healthy, meaningful relationships with God, self, and others. Okay. I came in a little late there. Well, welcome back, everyone. We've been talking about some of the promises in Step 1, associated with Step 1. Number 8 here, and Bill does it again. He's repeating himself using different words. He just said the great fact is just this. Now he says the central fact of our lives today. He's making an emphasis on what is really going on. He says the central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty. Boy, now that's a bold statement. The absolute certainty. If we put it another way and we said, I don't think, I don't have the opinion of, I know. Some people would get in our face and they go, well, that's your opinion. No, I know. And he says this here, is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. Wow, what a promise. That amazes me.
See, that I'll say this, and I've said it in the rooms because I just don't understand this. When this sort of thing takes place in your life,
yeah,
you start to stop giving yourself the credit for it.
Or your sponsor.
Or your sponsor.
My sponsor told me this. My sponsor told me that. Or I. Yeah.
It goes on, and I hope we read the last one on this page at 164 before the end of the show. But I'm telling you that when I realized who I was and what I couldn't do, that I couldn't get rid of this selfishness and self-centeredness, that I needed his help, and then he started to aid me in that process. Not that it's gone, but he started to help me.
Yeah,
that was miraculous.
Yeah,
that was a wonderful thing, and I stopped saying Bruce did this and Bruce did that.
Mm.
You know, it started glorifying him, and now I think it's like Marv was talking about. Now I'm trying to do that in my everyday life and in my conduct, the way I carry myself. And here I am. It was a bad conduct the last couple of days. It's amazing.
You're having spiritual experiences.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
Number 9, and then we will go down to the last one. Number 9, he has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. Now, see here, this is the part where we've gone from active alcoholism or addiction or whatever it may be that you're dealing with, being about powerlessness to being about power. Mm-hmm. His power. Mm-hmm. And I just love that. I it was years before anybody ever told me that this thing was about power. I just was pointing it in the wrong direction because I thought I had power. Mm-hmm. But yeah, let's talk about the last one on this page. Still, you may say, it reads, this is page 164 in the big book, but I will not have the benefit of contact with you who wrote this book. We cannot be sure. God will determine that. So you must remember that your real reliance is always upon Him. He will show you how to create the fellowship you crave. So my interpretation of that is the reader might be saying, well, that's fine and good for you guys. I wasn't there. And I can't experience it like you can. Well, he says God will determine that. You must remember that your real reliance is always upon Him.
Well, I'll give you a really prime example of what I think that we're talking about here with all these promises and the root cause of this thing, and all the way from solving this drink problem down, I think this
Right.
ties it in, is that God is going to determine that, and He'll show me how to have the kind of relationships that I've always craved. There's another way of saying it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be sitting here in this room with you and Monty and with you if it wasn't for God in my life. I believe that He has opened the door for me to have a relationship with you. And it's the kind of relationship I've craved all my life. Look at my friend Rick Fry.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a relationship that I've developed in Alcoholics Anonymous because of my relationship with God.
Yeah.
He's showing me how to have those kind of relationships. He's taught that to me. So he's done all these things on this page and showing me how to have this fellowship that I think Marv was talking about right from the jump.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I can see that, see the importance, but I believe that He's gave me that to do that. That's what He's saying here. He says, we cannot be sure. God will determine that. Now, this is where He goes. So you must remember that your real reliance is on Him. He will show you how to create the fellowship you crave. He will.
Yeah. Yeah. Not your sponsor, not your best buddy.
He will show me
Yeah.
how to care.
He'll do it.
You know what I mean? And that's by for the very first time in my life, and then I'll shut up and let Marv have this, is to...
I don't want it.
I've been afforded the opportunity for the first time in my life, Marv, to take an honest look at an appraisal at myself, and I didn't like what I seen. I didn't like it. And so I went to God with a different heart because of that and asked Him for help. And He came. Mm-hmm. That's all I can say. Mm. I don't know why He does in one person's life, why He doesn't in another. But I know I'm not going to take credit for that. It's just not going to happen.
Let's look at these last two really quick. I'm just going to read these. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. This is the next page. Remember, again, this is not a book of suggestions. This is a suggested program. We realize we know only a little. And he's talking about those first folks. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation. Here's a directive. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answer will come. Wow, that's cool. That's a great promise. If it's conditional, your own house is in order. Reminds me of that scripture verse about, taking the log out of your brother's eye, or the splinter out of your brother's eye when you haven't taken the log out of yours, that kind of thing. It doesn't say not to help your brother remove that. What it is saying is make sure your house is in order first. And so that's what it says. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. Great events will come to pass. Wow.
Where's the if now?
Yeah.
Say
Yeah.
It's if your relationship with Him.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And that's the way it is back before that, too. It's conditional upon your relationship with Him.
It is.
With God.
It is.
Okay? We have to learn to stop putting ourselves first and put Him first.
We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road to happy destiny. The fellowship of the Spirit, not the spirit of the fellowship, and they're both very real. A lot of times people get them confused. The fellowship of what Spirit? Of God's Spirit. The fellowship of His Spirit. And then it talks about, trudging, and we've talked about before, that's kind of in a chuckly way what that really means. Walking with purpose. Some people don't like that word trudge. It's not negative. It sounds negative, though, doesn't it? Trudge.
I've done a lot of that.
And so these are some of the promises associated with the first step. Next week we'll talk about promises associated with step 2. If you've got some ideas or you have some experiences, some promises that have come true in your life as a result of step 1, basically recognizing that you're powerless, that your life has become unmanageable, and as a result of that declaration, you have come to experience something that you've never experienced before, please let us know. Our email address is take12radio@comcast.net. Any closing thoughts from you guys?
Have you noticed in the book when we're reading and it gives us all this hopelessness and that we're going to drink again and we've lost the power of choice when it comes to alcohol, all of this stuff that they're just devastating, that always right behind it there comes a message of hope.
Yeah.
He doesn't just
leave you there.
Right. And I think that's what we're missing in the rooms, is that it's what it was like, and what it was like.
Oh.
And so we have all that. And I understand that, and I understand that there's new people that come in, but I think there should be a element of what it was like, what you did, and what it's like now.
Marv, any closing thoughts?
No.
Hey.
I just thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Oh,
I like you guys.
We like you too.
Remember this: no foot, no horse.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, you can't get out of town without a horse. That's right.
All right, my friends. We'll talk to you, or we'll see you next week for next Wednesday's show. Remember, we update shows on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We have workshops. We have special events that we cover. Check them all out. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Monty Meyer, MontyMeyer, for our YouTube version of the shows. You can download these by clicking on the green download MP3 link on our website directly under the YouTube versions. You can listen to these on your smartphone, your tablet, all the technology that Bruce and Marv hate. Is available for you at your fingertips. All right, until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man along with Marv R. and Bruce H., and we're wishing God's perfect serenity for you.
This has been a broadcast of Take 12 Recovery Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.